Hello everyone, I hope you're all doing well. Welcome back to another video. This is probably a little bit sooner than you expected. But today we're going to be looking at our second indie title, one that I thought looked really interesting. Its name is Tainted Grail Conquest. In their own words, the game is a unique, infinitely replayable, story-driven hybrid between a deck-building roguelike and an RPG game. Explore the ever-changing maps, fight with deadly enemies, and learn what happened to the cursed island of Avalon. This video will be broken down into small chapters where I'll go over my impressions of various aspects from the game. I won't deep dive into anything too precisely, but I thought it was a few things worth sharing.
King Arthur promised us safety on these shores. Instead, we found stormy seas, rocks like shark teeth, and treacherous mists. Those few who managed to land will be set.
Something that immediately intrigued me about this game was the setting, because I haven't personally played many titles that are set, or at least based on Arthurian legend. Next to Norse mythology, it's probably my favourite in terms of the lore and the atmosphere that it generally captures throughout all the different adaptations that it's seen over the years. Even something like Monty Python and the Holy Grail still manages to feel kinda cool in their own right, with creatures, knights, and, you know, the dangerous blood bunny of death. However, Tainted Grail is a much darker reimagining with a lot of pagan twists and moodier colours that truly reflect the shattering world that it's built in. If you know something of Arthurian legend, the game does a good job of making you feel like you understand some of the references and some of the characters, but it adds enough of something new to make it feel like it stands out on its own. So far, the writing and the story has been some of the most impressive work I've seen from an indie game, and that isn't to say that most of them don't get it right, but it's harder and much more expensive to find good voice actors, no matter how good your writing is. And the writing is really good. It's mysterious and thoughtful. It doesn't just try to tell you things without getting you invested first, and it keeps to its legendary roots.
Now, listen, there's a lot to do and no time to waste. First, we must ensure you're in proper condition to actually do anything. Perfect. You can speak, and yes, these are really great questions. No easy answers, though. Sorry to disappoint.
I find that a lot of indie games either have good writing but no voice acting, or they have both but it all feels a bit flat, and there isn't a lot of weight to either the emotion of the words or the emotion of the actors. And I understand why it's like that. I'm not saying it's bad, but I thought it was worth mentioning that in Tainted Grail it seems to have hit both the marks, and I feel that the writing is something that a lot of people overlook when they're talking about video games in general. And obviously everything I'm saying is very subjective, and it doesn't mean anything badly against indie titles in general. The character creation was nice to have, being able to choose a few different options for your player before being thrown into the world. It's nothing too extensive, but in a game like this you don't really spend a lot of time looking at your character in the same way that you would in a traditional RPG. The tattoos, however, are very cool, and they feel very kind of pagan, and I don't know, it's just really badass. And of course I went with a pagan madwoman, which means by default I now have boobs, because this is how this now. Whoa. The real meat of what you choose, I think, lies more in the class you pick, since they all seem to be very different. There are 6 classes in total, all of which have their own playstyles, abilities, strengths and weaknesses. It's, you know, the standard sort of idea of having different classes, and I think it works, and you get to feel the way they play differently when you choose a different class. For every time you die, you can decide if you want to select a different class, if you want to play as the same one, if you want to go in again with a buff, or if you want to go in without anything extra to help you out, and it's an interesting cycle of gameplay. And speaking of gameplay, the gameplay itself is from an isometric point of view while exploring, and then from a closer, more action-orientated view once you get into combat. The exploring itself involves covering as much ground as you can while either deciding to fight or try to avoid enemies. You have to think a lot about risk versus reward, and the game is designed in part for you to fail. When you die, you get a summary of what you discovered, how far you got, what new enemies you found, and what new allies you made. The normal mode I played on did not include any form of permadeath, but dying is more of a chance to learn from your mistakes and work out what to do next than it is like, a slap on the wrist like, oh no, you've died, that's the end of the game. It's more of like, this is expected, you're supposed to die in order to improve and in order to know where you should improve on, I suppose. It's really a game about having short runs and making a different experience every time you go through a gameplay loop. Also, I like that as you explored, you have to use torches to help you light the way and show you more of what's around you. This can help give you time to think and also to see what enemies might be close, or if there's a safe space somewhere, or if there's like a treasure chest and it's guarded by a certain number of enemies and you're trying to decide if you want to go for that or if you want to go the other way where there's less chance of being attacked but less reward. So you have to kind of think about what you're going to do and how you're going to balance it out. And having to think about when to use those torches and when not to is another great kind of layer of management that can make things feel a lot more tense.
Banish the weirdness when people walk by. Many believe Merlin himself invented the runes carved into them. There's also a darker rumor that they were left by the Four-Dwellers to lure humans into their domain, like moths to the flame.
The actual combat is pretty standard at first, but as you grow and die more, you begin to find better cards, ones that either, buff your abilities, block incoming attacks, and so on and so forth. There's you can build your deck and build something that just becomes increasingly more powerful every single time you find something new, and the more you play, the more powerful you're going to become. And you can begin to use the cards in conjunction with each other to plan out how you'll play your hand and what enemy you want to focus on most, and those sort of things. Some people who are used to more standard combat systems in RPGs might find this a little bit difficult to get used to, but if you've ever played a game like Gwent, then you'll get the picture very, very, very quickly. As a whole, the game looks really wonderful. The artwork and the music is especially noteworthy, and I love the way each painting or card seems to shatter into the world, and it feels collectively very well put together. It's just really nice to look at. The animations can be a little bit off sometimes to certain characters. I present to you my example, Mr. and Mrs. Boxing Skeleton, but it's nothing terrible or bad, it's just something I saw while playing. Overall, I really enjoyed my experience in this game, and I'm going to continue playing it even after making this video. If you're a fan of Arthurian legend, RPGs, or games that combine different combat systems from different genres, then I'd recommend you look into this game a little further and see if you like it. You can find the link to its Steam page down below. As always, I hope you enjoyed this video. There will be more coming soon, and until the next one, you go and have a very wonderful day. Checky brecky.